is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
Hello and welcome into another edition of Three-Ma. I am John Kurtz, joined by Derek Young from K-State Online, Cole Manbeck, former beat writer for the Manhattan Mercury. Strap it in for this one. This may be a tough one to get through. I'm just going to get right into it, man. Grab your 360 vodka, grab your Ben Holiday bottled and bond bourbon. Hopefully you've already had one or two before starting this discussion, because that was a painful ass loss in Austin. About as gut-wrenching as it gets, with K-State losing by 3 in overtime. Whether it is Ben Holiday bottled and bond bourbon or 360 vodka, our friends at Holiday still have the hookup for you. Great K-State folks who support our pods, so please support them. If you're going to the game this weekend, K-State Baylor, and please do, if you can get out there, let's avoid a little bit of a letdown here after that game last week. Make sure you have it stocked up your tailgate, whether you are more on the 360 vodka side or the Ben Holiday bottled in bond bourbon side. Get stocked up, and let's do it to it. Okay. Yeah, I guess we can just start there, man. This is a tough one to get up off the mat for. You lose the chance to be in the driver's seat for the Big 12 championship game. You lose the chance to have eternal scoreboard over Texas. You lose the chance to break that losing streak against Texas. You lose the chance to vault yourself into the top 20 and become a topic of national discussion here for the rest of the week. And by the way, if you make the Big 12 championship game, you're like Oklahoma State. I think we feel pretty good about that matchup for K-State and Arlington had you actually gotten there. So there is a lot that was lost by losing that game, and especially to have K-State be the better team for the back. I mean, at least 20 minutes of game time of that, K-State was decidedly the better team there. And to have it come down to a 4th and goal play like that with all the missed opportunities, it is one that's just going to sting and kind of make you sick for a while. I don't know that there's much getting around that fact.
Yeah, I think because of implications and the way that it unfolded, it's 10 times more painful, probably more than that than anything that transpired with Oklahoma State and Missouri. I think Missouri was gut-wrenching in a way because it ended on a 61-yard field goal. Oklahoma State, they just didn't play well. Never figured it out at any point in that game. Against Texas, you did figure it out at the end of the second quarter. It might have been too little too late. If you figured it out before that, maybe you don't have to roll the dice in overtime, so to speak. But yeah, that was painful. And the first half, most of the first half is, where the criticisms are going to lie. Go for it in fourth quarter and overtime. I didn't mind that as much. More so I minded the 3rd and 1 call before Chris Tennant missed a chip shot field goal, when you probably could have done more there in that situation. At least, maybe a scheme or a formation that was really working for you on that day. The QB game wasn't really that effective. So, painful loss and just a bad start again. And just getting down big deficits in Texas. That's become a common thing.
Top 5, maybe a top 5 most painful regular season football loss in my lifetime. John, would you agree?
Oh, you're putting me on the spot there. I'd have to really think through that, man. It's the most painful regular season football loss that I can remember in a while. Like, out of the Kleiman era, has there been a more painful one? I don't think that there has been.
And 17 and 18 didn't matter enough for
No, you'd have to go back to 2012 Baylor to probably find a more painful. I mean, you get Auburn hurt in 2014 because you missed opportunities, but it didn't. It was a non-con game, and Auburn didn't end up being very good. And then 2000 OU, when College Game Day was in Manhattan, that one really hurt.
I was just about to say that one. I was like, man, 2000 OU seems above maybe all the rest in terms of painful regular season losses.
Yeah, I started writing out a list. I mean, I could maybe even argue 2004 KU, John and Lawrence, just because it was the first time. But that team wasn't going to go anywhere. It just the
team was that good.
Yeah, no, it stung. And then 2003 at Texas hurt a lot. The Roberson had the ball, chance to go up 10 with 10 minutes left in the game, and that one slipped away, and that was a team that we thought had national championship aspirations. as well. They ended up winning the Big 12. So sorry to drag everybody down a dark hole of memory lane there of upsetting losses, but it's another long string of difficult losses to Texas. That's 7 straight losses to the Longhorns, and 6 of those 7 have been decided by a grand total of 29 points, an average of 4.8 points per game. And 6 of those 7 losses, you have a double overtime loss in 2017 where they lost by 6. You have this one where, regardless of everything that transpired in the game, and we'll talk about why they were in that position and playing catch up, but regardless of everything, even the 3rd and 1 call, which was incredibly frustrating, the DY mentioned, you had 6 yards to go with 4 downs. And that's I just have replayed those plays in my head, guys, probably 50 times. It's been agonizing.
Yeah. And I was going to say, first, second, and third down were actually good calls.
So they all could have been touchdowns, and that's what hurts.
Like, I know people are getting on Colin Klein, and the beginning of the game was not good at all. But, dude, if Will Howard runs right on first down, I'm not sure that he's scoring, but he's getting to the 1 or the 2 probably, and your game...
Yeah, there was one block that was finished.
Your play calling completely changes after that. It was just not great vision on that play. The second down play, I mean, it's the jump pass, and I'll be honest, I haven't seen if that was wide open, but Ben Sinnott released off the line of scrimmage with nobody around him. I have no idea how Texas did that. And it just, the play, I get it. It's hard to just veer off of that play and see that and make it happen. But that was what killed me. I saw him, the snap, and Ben Sinnott just walks right into the end zone with nobody around him. Ball gets batted down. And then Keegan Johnson, Cole, I know you told me you had more of a stomach to go back and watch some of this than I did, but you told me that Keegan Johnson would open for a second half before the ball got rifled in there on third down. And I'll throw in cursory, why the hell can't we get a replay of crucial plays in a game to see that? But I didn't get a chance to see it closer, other than Will just looked like he tried to rifle it in there too hard. I mean, felt like they schemed up 3 touchdowns potentially, or that just didn't work out.
They probably did. The third down one would have been tough, probably no matter what. But second down was a clear touchdown for sure. And credit to Texas, that's them making a play a little bit in that situation too.
Is that pop pass truly a one read play, or can Will have the opportunity to look that off? Should have during quarterback see the whole field there and see this tight end wide open?
A pop pass, there's usually only one intended target. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't lose a ton of sleep in terms of hey, Will should have because the whole point is you got to carry out a run fake. So you're thinking right, you got to sell a run fake. So your heads forward. You just got to.
It's a predetermined throw because you're literally kind of going blind. You run up there, jump and throw it, and you're just assuming it's going to be open.
It would have been open. It appeared.
Higgins was open.
Yeah, he was popping open right as the ball gets batted down. T'Vondre Sweat broke free and unfortunately dominated K-State up front all game. I mean, he's a load at 365 pounds. And I don't know. In just my head, I was like, you see tight end pop open that quickly, wide open. I'm kind of hoping your quarterback sees the whole field and maybe, just goes ahead and chucks it. But I get it. Texas only had one defender to 2 guys there on that side of the field. It was bizarre. They screwed that up. So, but yeah, it would work probably if they block it right. So it's that one's done. And then the third down play, I mean, Will was late. I mean, Keegan was wide open crossing over the end zone there, and they were in zone. But I also think Keegan probably needed to settle in a little quicker into the spot in the opening. But, Will could have hit him. It would have been a touchdown. So that's what hurts. 3 plays could have been touchdowns.
Did the ball get her to his hands on the third down play? Again, I have no idea what the hell.
It was behind him, wasn't it? And he threw it really hard.
And, I mean, there was a lot of smoke on it, though.
Yeah. Obviously, I hated the 4th down call. So. Not so much going for. I mean, I do question going for it there because you're at the 4 and you're in an obvious passing situation. If you're at the 1.5 or the 1 yard line, I'm more on board with it because you got the whole playbook, but they know you're going to drop back and throw. And I just don't love K-State's offense trying to beat them in an obvious passing situation. there on fourth down, and I didn't like the call of what they did.
Here's my thing, and I know Kleiman's not going to say it in post game, but I would have to imagine a part of calculus there is Chris Tennant is not good in short range situations. He's already missed a chip shot field goal. You already screwed up the snap on an extra point. And Chris Tennant is a guy that we've seen throughout his career. It seems to mentally, he's had some issues when things start to go wrong. And that was going to be another short chip shot with all the pressure in the world on him. I just think that probably has to be a part of your calculus. Like, hey, it's not, people view it as like it's an automatic 3 points. The way that it was going, I do not think that was an automatic 3 points. If that's a 40, honestly, if it's a 40-yarder, I would have felt better about Tennant there because he's better, for whatever reason, he's like better from 35 and out than he is 35 and in. That's what we've seen throughout his whole career. So I will defend the decision based almost solely on that. Like, you have a chance to go win the game, and would you guys have felt great about Chris Tennant lining up to go kick the field goal? Because I sure as hell wouldn't have. I would have been very nervous.
No, I wouldn't have. And I think the outcry against not that play, I understand those upset about the play, but the outcry against that decision, I think, is a little too much. Just because had he tried Tennant out there again and he misses his third field goal from inside the 5-yard line, people are going to, want to burn everything down even more. So I think it's easier to live with it unfolding that way than with Tennant's leg. I think he's missed 3 extra points this year. And plus that chip shot field. So I'm with you, John. I think that's part of it. And then at the end of the day, they got out-coached and out-schemed on that call. They thought they were getting man defense. Texas showed man, flipped his zone, and basically took away that first read.
Now, here's another thing I would say about the last play, too. I did watch that one again. You just got to throw the ball, right? You got to give Ben Sinnott a chance. I mean, I know it looked like he's probably going to get tackled like the 1.5, but that's a play where it looks like that's basically the one read. That's the one thing you got to do. I don't know that trying to circle back around. I would have just, whatever. It's tough. I understand they got fooled, but you just throw the ball. Just throw the ball and give Sin a chance there. I at least it felt better going down swinging like that. But
the second read, I think, was to Keegan Johnson. And to be honest, I'm sitting there. I was happy they went for it. Like I said, I think that was my call. And I think part of it for me was the paranoia that one of those Texas playmakers was about to do something, because they had been shut down for quite a bit. And that's probably a reason maybe to just try to kick the field goal. But it felt like Xavier Worthy, Joel Brooks, you can't keep them down for so long. So that's why I felt like, hey, they got a field goal here. Let's take advantage and try to win it the time that they got a field goal rather than the time that they perhaps get a touchdown.
Yeah, I gotta tell you guys where my thought process was before the attempt failed. I said kick the field goal. Malik Murphy was 8 of 22 passing for 73 yards and 2 interceptions over his last 22 passes and was averaging 3 yards per pass. He was completely rattled and had nothing going. And I thought there was a decent opportunity. He's just going to give you the ball and turn it over the way that he had played most of that second half. So I get they have a ton of playmakers, but their quarterback couldn't get him the football after he was dynamite in the first quarter. And so my thought was kick the field goal, take it to second overtime because of the reasons I outlined. I just didn't love in an obvious passing situation, dropping back there on fourth down and trying to win one-on-one in those matchups. I didn't understand the bit.
Would you have felt good about Chris Tennant lining up to kick?
Is an extra point. I mean, yeah, it was from the 4-yard line. He missed the extra point against UCF. He's missed 3 extra points in his career, so obviously, not great. But he still made 97% of his kicks from inside the 5-yard line in his career, and so I think there's a better chance of that than scoring a touchdown from the 4 against a good Texas defense trying to throw the ball. So yeah, I would have felt better about that, to be frank with you guys. And I didn't understand the Ben Sinnott route on that fourth down play because he runs a route 1 yard off the line of scrimmage. Is at the 3-yard line. He's not even close to the end zone. It had no chance. I don't get it. The first 3 plays were great. I don't get that play.
If it's man coverage, since it's a rub route, there's not going to be anyone on him at all. He can walk in. That's the
so shouldn't they? So should they do something? Should they not do something to figure out if it's man coverage or zone? Because typically teams will motion somebody then to realize what coverage they're in. Like you can't just like go into a snap guessing what coverage they're going to be in that situation. In my mind, when you call that
that's the rebuttal there. But Texas doesn't really do that. They never did that the entire game. They don't really flip zone man and trick you with guys. So that's the interesting part. That was the first time they really did it.
Yeah, I mean, it's the fourth down play. I think they got out coached like that. Whether it was just the play in general or how it happened there on the, with the scheme. They got coached for sure. I mean, it sucks. I know, Cole, this is a discussion that we can have, I suppose, here too, because you and I talked about it a little bit. But we haven't even talked about the thing that makes me want to vomit the most about how this game was lost. And I guess I'll leave you with a little bit of a tease on that front. Cole, are you wearing home field apparel today?
Yeah, sure. There it is.
Okay. Cole's got lots of enthusiasm in its home field apparel, the Sailor Willie hoodie. See our friends at Home Field Apparel at homefieldapparel.com. Use promo code 3MAW23 for 15% off your first order. They've got all the best K-State gear there. Great retro logos, all sorts of awesome stuff. It is also the most comfortable K-State gear that I own. And basketball season. Basketball starts tonight as K-State plays USC, as we're recording this here on Monday morning. So you can get your Cat Script basketball logo t-shirts there at homefieldapparel.com too. So they're not going to get you just geared up for football. You can get geared up for hoops as well. Homefieldapparel.com, 3MAW23 is the promo code for 15% off your first order. And we are back with more next.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sport Network.
Okay. Look, man, I don't know whose fault it was. I don't know if it's Bloomer or Random Adner, but he missed an even shorter extra point than what would normally be there after an offsides penalty by Texas when you have all the momentum and are about to go up 28-27. And theoretically, a 45-yard field goal from Chris 10 with 1 second left is for the win, as opposed to the tie if you just hit an extra point. But the snap, Bloomer was not ready for it. It hits him, rolls off. They do nothing with it. That is hard for me to swallow. That is hard for me to stomach. That you have a long snapper who's been there forever and is excellent and has not made a mistake in virtually his entire career. And you have a punter who's killing it, by the way. I mean, Jack Bloomer has been great. I tweeted that at one point in the game. Jack Bloomer was a stud early on when K-State was struggling offensively. Below an extra point. And you go to overtime and lose a game in overtime. Now, I know, Cole, you argued that Texas might have played a little bit differently had they been down 1 point as opposed to tied. So I get it. But that does not sit very well with me that happened. And I wonder, Derek, here, I wanted to ask you too, Derek. Was there any insight into what exactly happened on that from the post game? Because I just wondered, with the penalty, there was, it was a little bit different. You're out of routine a bit because of the penalty, and you're adjusting there. What? I would just love to know what exactly the hell happened there for that to go wrong in that spot.
It was asked, but Kleiman said it was something they still had to figure out, and Texas would have played that differently. They're not going to go three runs and then punt, right? That's as if it's a tied or they're trailing in that game. So it looks a lot different. But if you're Kansas State, you probably feel really good about your chances for the same reason Cole wanted to, kick the field in overtimes, because you're still, up one in that situation probably. And Malik Murphy is the quarterback. So you still feel good about it. They would have played it differently, but you feel good about it.
Yeah. I mean, it's very unfortunate. DY, Texas. I read that Chris Kleiman and the staff were heated at the officials on that missed extra point. Did they do something to delay the cadence or try to mimic the cadence that caused Ryan and Plattner? I mean, the guy's been perfect his entire career. It's shocking to see that. Did you get any indication or see anything that happened?
No, I didn't. And my assumption and the refs did it right because he was unimpeded to the kicker.
Yeah.
They didn't just count them. They didn't let him decline the penalty. Yeah.
Yeah, because Tennant made it. Like, right? So I think that was just the initial frustration about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Makes sense. I thought that might have been what they were heated about. I mean, the Texas guy did stop when, of course, the whistle blew. So, yeah, I mean, yeah. You should just make the next extra point. So I'm not gonna make a lot of excuses for that.
But it is stupid that Texas benefited from their own penalty. I will say that.
Yeah. That's frustrating. But at the end, yeah, I don't know if like Texas, I just think it changes the way the game is if K-State's up 1, and then like later on when Texas kicks a field goal to go up 2, does Texas defend it differently when K-State's driving and tighten things up when they know a field goal could beat them instead of just tie? I don't know. The flow of the game, there were still 11, 12 minutes left when that transpired. Yeah.
Yep.
It's also like, honestly, like I got very worked up over the 3rd and 1 QB power that resulted in the missed field goal. Like it's unfathomable to me that was the play call. Like absolutely ridiculous that was the play. You couldn't run the ball all game and you're expecting to run it with an obvious QB power and beat them up front without even the threat of a read or the running back getting the ball as you go empty. I don't understand that. But again, at the end of the day, I just harken back to the 6 yards with 4 plays. And it was right there to just take it. So like I kind of just throw all that out in my head and just keep replaying the 4 plays, 6 yards. So when Ben Sinnott got that ball, DY, I thought they were going to win to get to this.
Oh, yeah. I was like 98%. 98% there that they were winning that game. Yeah, at that, but all the momentum. I mean, you think about the way that game was going and where the momentum was at that point, like Texas's offense just sputters again, on the field goal drive. They do nothing. Malik Murphy hadn't peed a drop in like an hour and a half of game time, and their defense was back on their heels. And the first play, you hit them with and give Colin Klein credit, a really well-designed play to slip Ben Sinnott in underneath and get that ball down to the 6. Yeah, I was like at 98% they're winning this game. I
thought it was done. We had 3 good play calls, I thought, there. But it's funny because there is so much to pick apart, and we could probably do that a little bit more than we already have, about calls or how Kansas State began the game. But at the end of the day, you're sitting there 1st and goal at the 7 with a chance to win. So, but if you're cleaner, if you're better in the other parts, it probably doesn't take that. That would be the argument, really. Because you say that 3rd and 1 call, and I will say in general, look, and I get it a little bit, but Colin Klein's stubbornness to not really steer away from that game plan, which was really predicated on needing to run the football, which I thought was a good plan because I didn't have the confidence that this passing game could do what it did to Texas without the threat of a run game. But it did, and that's a good thing. But Klein, and Will Howard referenced it, in post-game, but he probably abandoned, that game plan too late.
Yeah, I mean, it's 2 years in a row that they've just been railroaded by Texas in the first half, and then had this furious comeback where they wind up falling just short. So,
and I thought he saw that against Oklahoma State too.
Well, some of that's like defensively also. I mean, look, the defense played great after the opening couple minutes, but they got blitzed early on in the game too. So it's been both sides. And that Texas scored 31 points in the first half last year in Manhattan. So you've had the same thing happen to really both coordinators against Texas 2 years in a row. But man, I mean, there are so many things. VJ Payne has his hands on the ball in the end zone early in the game that costs you 3 points. He hangs on to that keeps 3 points off the board for Texas. And, butterfly effect, who knows how things change after that. But that play bothers me. The other thing that really bothers me, I would love to see how that game plays out if Ken Johnson catches Will Howard's best throw of the day down the field instead of volleyballing it right into the lap of a Texas safety. I mean, Keegan Johnson played his best game of the year and came back and had some nice moments, and I am glad about that. I am encouraged with that, but that was peak at that moment in time. I don't know that I've been more angry about the K-State football season than at that moment in time when we've had this guy that we have been he was billed as the Malik Knowles replacement, the deep threat of the offense, the guy that was going to really let the passing game explode. And you get there, you fight through this half where you should be down like 30, and it's a 10-point game, and Will Howard, who has struggled to throw the ball down the field, puts a deep ball on the money into tight coverage, and you not only drop it, but you bat it up right into the lap of this safety so that Gus Johnson can wax poetic about this walk-on safety at Texas for 10 minutes. My God. Like, the way the offense played for most of the second half, I feel like they probably go down and score there. And then what is the game like from that? You know, you could have started the comeback earlier, put more pressure on Texas earlier. And so as you can tell, that play worked me up about as much as any in the game. So there were plenty of moments. Even Cole, we could go back to the first half. They flirted with getting a field goal chance with Tennant, who has a huge leg and is pretty good from long distance. And there was some bad. Chris Kleiman has a lot of strengths. Culture is one of them, and that showed up in this game because they didn't pack it in and they came back. Game management and clock management, I have just resigned myself to. That will never ever be a strength of Chris Kleiman. He's evolved in a lot of areas. He's got a lot of evolution to do in that. They are always bad in those sorts of situations. They are never good, and it happened again. So
where I was probably pissed off the most, or at least flabbergasted the most, is one that you can't even attempt a 58-yard field goal with Chris Tennant there instead of doing whatever they did that didn't work. I think even if you think that's out of his range, he probably still has more of a chance than to heave up a prayer. That's what it felt like to me. And then you can get even more in a field goal range comfortably if Ben Sinnott just doesn't go out of, if Ben Sinnott does go out of bounds. Like, that was silly. I don't know if I call that silly coaching. That was a silly play. Go out of bounds.
Well, but they blew a timeout on they blew a timeout on the offensive, which at that time my concern was, well, you're leaving more time for Texas. But what it also did was it kept you from having an extra timeout to be able to actually run a legit play. If they have one more play, I have a lot of confidence they're going to get 5 to 10 yards, and then they would be able to line up Tennant for that.
But if they don't call that timeout, they might not get that possession.
Yeah, you could argue that. You could also argue that Texas might have been the one calling the timeout if you just let them there on defense, because they get the ball back. Like, I'll be honest again. I thought it was unfathomable that they called the timeout. I was glad they ran the ball on first down down there inside the 10, because I wanted to burn a little bit of clock. But then K-State called the timeout immediately. They were inside the 10 and they had 3 timeouts. You don't need to burn a timeout. There was a minute left. Regardless, it may have helped them later because Texas did go 3 and out. So I looked like an idiot on Twitter when I tweeted out, why on earth would you use a timeout there? Then Ben Sinnott doesn't go out of bounds when you do get the ball back. Now, that only ended up costing them. So it cost them like 2.5, 3 seconds, which is valuable. Because the clock stopped on the first and that they were slow to get the clock started because they were slow getting the ball spotted. So they snapped it, I think, only 2 seconds later after, but he still needs to go out of bounds. And then Jace Brown catches the ball, and they thought he got out of bounds, I think, initially, and it was just the clock stop because of the first down. There were 9 seconds. Clock stops, get up and clock the ball. You have 7 seconds, but you've got a timeout then to work with, so you can use the whole field to pick up another 6 or 7 yards, because Texas then just took away the boundary and didn't let you get out of bounds, and that's why the next 2 plays were what they were. But it's regardless, a lot of things very, very frustrating in that game. Look, some of the best coaches, for whatever reason, struggle with clock management. Andy Reid has struggled with that for as long as he's been the Chiefs coach, and he's one heck of a coach. So coaches struggle with that. It's frustrating as a fan, though, to see that. And a lot of things to nitpick in that first half, man. I got a lot of numbers.
I mean, it didn't even matter, but another close to peak frustration moment for me at the time, because of how much the offense was struggling, is like, you block a punt, right? Which, awesome. Game board. Game board. Hell yeah. Great work, dude. There is nobody around that football at like the 40-yard line, and you're diving on it. I mean, I have to think
that's touchdown anyway, right?
They did.
They did, but John, my instant reaction was like, it's not like a fumble where you need to just fall on it. Like, if you don't recover it cleanly, you get the ball no matter what. So you got 4 or 5 there. Yeah, you got 4 or 5 guys there literally that could just house it and they dive on it. And I'm like, heck, great job by Shane Porter, because that started to swing the game. Like K-State probably gets shut out in the first half if he doesn't block that.
7-7. Yeah.
Yeah. So they ended up scoring the touchdown and sparked, but kind of by like I think a 28-yard catch by Jace Brown. That was a really nice play, 1-on-1. So a nice throw, but yeah, it was nice to see. But yeah, that was frustrating, John.
Here's the way I put it in one of my articles. If you told me that Will Howard was going to throw for almost 400 yards and 4 touchdowns, 3 receivers were going to have 69 receiving yards or more. Nice. Kansas State scores 30 points, and Texas turns it over 3 times and has a punt blocked. I would have thought Kansas State won, and maybe easily.
Yeah, three turnovers, a block punt, and arguably a 4th turnover because the turnover on downs, they fumble the exchange. I mean, it's you look at this Texas offense, guys, over the last I'm just pulling up the numbers. So Malik Murphy started the game 11 of 15 passing for 175 yards. He was averaging almost 12 yards per pass and 16 yards per completion. I mentioned earlier, following his hot start, he goes 8 of 22 passing the rest of the game for 73 yards and averaged 3.3 yards per pass. Texas scored 17 points on its first 4 drives. Over the final 12 drives, they scored 16 points, an average of 1.3 points per drive, but it's really 9 points on 11 drives because the K-State offense gave them the ball at the 5-yard line. You could argue that K-State's defense held Texas over the final 12 drives without a touchdown, essentially. I mean, they got the ball at the 5 and they just punch it in. Texas' first 4 drives, they run 21 plays for 221 yards of offense. They were averaging 10.5 yards per play. Over the final 12 drives, they run 53 plays for 207 yards and 3.9 yards per play.
They didn't really even switch their defense up. The difference was they forced Murphy to beat them in the first quarter. He did it, and the rest of the game he did not. They didn't really change up what they were doing.
I mean, Murphy got shook. Because it was not just Cole, how similar, by the way, did the interception for Jacob Harris look to the exact same thing that guy did last week against BYU? Malik Murphy, 2 weeks in a row, threw a screen pass to nobody. It was an offensive lineman. It was an offensive lineman that was out there, and I don't know if he thought that guy, but he just threw it to nobody for a second straight week. You saw he did the exact same thing against BYU, and he just started melting down. How many passes were behind a guy? He would have open receivers 7 yards down the field, like the short to intermediate stuff. It just flipped a switch, and he was not accurate. That is one thing I will say about this game. If we're being objective and honest about this, if Quinn Ewers is playing that game, I think Texas wins by 10 in regulation, because I don't think that you're getting the gifts that you got from Malik Murphy there. And I don't just mean the Jacob Harris interception. I mean some of the incompletions that were in there too. They probably move the ball a little bit more effectively. And even if you do turn it on with a block punt and have it come back and Jonathan Brooks fumbles, which, great play by K-State to knock the ball loose. You're probably still losing that game by 7-10 in regulation, I would think, if Quinn Ewers plays.
Maybe more. Malik Murphy gifted them a lot. But Kansas State also plays that game differently. Quinn Ewers is the quarterback, so I'll say that. But your point probably still stands. Your point probably still stands.
Yeah, the only knock I could even have on the K-State defense, guys, because the numbers I just gave you, and granted, yes, with Quinn Ewers, things are probably a little bit different, but only knock on the K-State defense, Texas ran for 230 yards, 6.2 yards per carry. It's only second time in 9 games this season Texas went over 200 yards. And, now in the Chris Kleiman era, Texas has rushed for over 200 yards in all 5 matchups. In those 5 games, Texas has 1,256 yards rushing on 190 carries, an average of 251 rushing yards per game and 6.6 yards per carry. So
Saturday, I think it was just tackling because they were there. They were playing the run.
Yeah, and a lot of it's like the 54-yard Baxter run on 4th and 1 where they just got K-State off guard. I think K-State thought they were going to sneak it. They had everybody bunched up, and then one-on-one tackle can't make the play. I think it's the most yards per carry K-State's allowed this year on the ground. So Again, at 6.2 yards per carry is second highest by Texas this season. Anyways, I'm not going to knock the K-State defense, really, because they dominated in that second half. But the offense sure struggled. And now in their 3 losses this year, K-State scored 78 points on 42 drives, an average of 1.86 points per drive. In the 5 wins against FBS teams, they've scored 206 points on 53 drives, an average almost 4 points per drive. So for perspective, the number 3 team in the country averages 3.9 points per drive. In K-State's 5 FBS wins, they performed like a top 5 offense. And in their 3 losses, all by 1 score, they performed like an 80th, 85th offense in the country in those 3 games. And you lose by 1 score in each. K-State was 3-2 in 1-score games last year. They're 0-3 in 1-score games this year.
Here's one more bone that I have to pick. I mean, the obvious is, they didn't get away from the running game soon enough. Didn't abandon it. And Will Howard looked so good for a lot of the second half that really is frustrating. Like, if you would have let him try to cut it loose earlier, like how different do things go? And the receivers, by the way, Jace Brown, and much as I was frustrated with Keegan Johnson at one point, easily played his best game in a K-State uniform. They started to really bring it. But I don't understand why there seems to be such a hesitancy to let Avery Johnson do anything other than run the same 4 plays when he's in the game. This is not in any way, shape, or form like hey, Avery should have played more at quarterback thing, but the couple series that he got, he handed the ball off. And then 3rd and 14, well, that was a handoff too, right? They don't even, he's the he is the most mature true freshman I have ever come across. And I covered the team for a decade. I have never come across a true freshman that is more mature and cool and calm than him. And that's not just in listening to him talk, that's in watching his body language on the field. And there is Colin Klein just does not want to, he is so scared of letting Avery cut it loose. And I get it. He threw a ball late to Ben Sinnott there that I'm sure that is what he would tell me why he's not letting him do it. But when at that point in the game, you can't do anything. Let him, if Texas is going to get pressure, let him roll around in the pocket and make a play or use his legs to run. There was no opportunity for anything. I felt bad for him. They're putting him out there with one hand tied behind his back if that's all that you're going to let him do offensively. And it drives me nuts. And we've had that complaint since the Missouri game when they first started using him there. I do not for the life of me understand why they won't give him a little bit more.
Yeah, in general, I think Colin Klein is kind of averse to cutting it loose in a way, because he wouldn't cut it loose in the game even when down 17-0, really was locking onto that game plan and not diverting from it. So he didn't even want to let Will Howard to let it rip. As you said, there's a body of work where he's averse to kind of letting Avery Johnson let it rip. And then he's averse to really letting it rip when they're backed up at all. Because with Avery Johnson, he had the first down run, second down run. I think there was a penalty or something. You get backed up 3rd and long inside your own red zone.
Eric, it was 3rd and 9, and one of 3 times in the game that Hayden Gillum didn't snap the ball in time, and they get a false start penalty. Yes.
Okay. So you got 3rd and long inside your own 20, and whenever they do in those situations, Colin Klein doesn't let it rip either. When he's backed up, he is very risk averse. And with Avery Johnson, he's very risk averse. And in this game and the beginning of Oklahoma State, part of Missouri, the game plan seemed to be pretty risk averse.
Yeah. It became obvious, glaringly obvious, that K-State wasn't going to be able to run the ball effectively early on in this game. They were getting beat up front, and first 6 drives of the game, K-State runs 23 plays for 21 yards of offense. They got 2 first downs. They scored 7 points on their first 11 drives. Guys, 11 drives is typically an entire game's worth for K-State. You look at the Houston game, they had 11 drives. The TCU game, they had 9. The Texas Tech game, they had 12. So 7 points in the first 11 drives. On those first 11 drives, they had 111 yards of offense on 39 plays, an average of 2.8 yards per play and 0.63 points per drive. And then 3 of your touchdown drives for 42 yards, 12 yards, and 32 yards. But what I will say, the slow start, it was brutal and it killed them because they might have been in a different position if they avoided that. After those first 30 plays, the next 39 plays of regulation, they run K-State average 218 yards of offense. So following those first 39 plays, the next 30 plays went for 218 yards of offense at 7.3 yards per play. Heck, they scored 20 points in less than a 3-minute stretch at game time. It was crazy. Now, again, short fields, defense set them up. But they really got things going. And over their last 11 drives, K-State had 11 completions for 15 or more yards. The passing game really got things going more downfield. So that's the encouraging thing. And you saw, like you said, John, Keegan Johnson had nearly doubled his receiving yards for the entirety of the season in this game, most of it in the second half. And then Jace Brown continues to show that he's going to be a dude. So
so to turn it a little positive, I was trying to be more positive than most after the game and looking at some of this. And I did. There was a part of me that really did feel like, that first half, I thought they were just going to get clocked. And I was like, okay, well, so the narrative on this team is the whole year we thought, hey, they might be Big 12 championship caliber. And we were kind of fooling ourselves with that. Now, by the end of the game, the metrics still like them and think they're a top 15 sort of team. I think they maybe still are there. And I'm encouraged by that. And I'm encouraged by the fact that against everybody not named Texas with 360-pound monster defensive tackles, they have a really good running game. Now they finally showed in a Big 12 game they could actually cut it loose and throw it down the field against a pretty good defense. Can those things come together now for the final 3 games of the year? Because you do still have 9 wins out there. You do still have a potential 10-win season if you're going to go win a bowl game. Like, it still can be a nice finish. If you beat Kansas and Iowa State, that would help people feel a lot better. Is that replicable? Like, is this something that they can build on? Keegan Johnson playing better, Jace Brown continuing to emerge, Phillip Brooks looking great. Give him a ton of credit. That play that he made along the sideline helped really jumpstart things, and that was a hell of an effort. Is this something that can continue for them the rest of the year? And Will Howard, by the way, too, because we probably need to talk about Ben Sinnott's comments at some point here after the game, calling people out for criticizing Will Howard. But, for being honest, we have not seen the fourth quarter Texas Will Howard has not made an appearance the entire season. That was like 2022 Will Howard. He's been on a milk carton the entire season until now. I realize the offense was great against TCU and Houston, but that was a lot of check down. That was not doing much down the field. That was the Will Howard we saw that was so effective last year in 2022. And it is the first time and it came in early November, was the first time that we saw it. So can that be something that they replicate down the stretch?
I think you can replicate it because Texas has a better defense than the next 3 teams that you're going to face. So I think that's fair to assume. You got to really like your offense going forward. They're continuing to grow, continuing to build. This should be even, a bigger boost in confidence for them, quite frankly, as long as they can get off the mat and don't have a hangover from the heartbreak that they just suffered. However, I will say, I guess that's a negative thing, but I will fight back against one comment. And actually, I said it too, and someone fought back against it, and I was like, hey, they got a point. Because I was like, at the end of the day, they just took a team that might go to the college football playoff down to the wire in their own house, which is true. But Malik Murphy quarterbacking Texas for a whole year, what are they, 7-5 or 8-4?
They might be able to get to like 9-3, but they're point taken. They're not nearly as good. Like what I said earlier, I think K-State loses the game by 10 if Quinn Ewers plays. Yeah,
it's just hard to take that game too literally because Texas is a little bit of a shell of themselves with Malik Murphy at quarterback.
Yeah, I agree. Man, I thought you were taking umbrage with a comment that I had. So that was okay. Well, I was trying to be positive there. That was I just let the record show. I tried to have a brief moment of positivity and levity.
I like the offense. I like the offense going forward, though. It's a good sign they can do that against Texas.
Well, let me throw out a couple more negatives, and then we'll switch to the positives, John.
No, Cole. We're going into Ben Sinnott next, and that's going to be a little contentious and negative. So
okay, well that can be that way too. I just wanted to say the 33 yards rushing and 1.1 yards per rush by K-State are both a worst by a K-State offense since the 2014 Alamo Bowl against UCLA when they ran for 31 yards on 32 carries. That's a span of 110 games. And in 29 games against Power 5 opponents during the Steve Sarkisian era at Texas, only once have they held an opponent to fewer rushing yards and a lower yards per carry than what they did against K-State on Saturday. K-State's longest rush of the day was 8 yards. And K-State overall as a team averaged a season worst 4.9 yards per play. Next worst was 5.2 at Oklahoma State. That's it. So they couldn't run the ball at all. I know Texas had the best run defense in the Big 12. We thought that was a concern. They were holding teams to 98 yards a game on the ground and 3.2 yards per carry, both best in the league. But I'm a bit surprised they couldn't be a little more effective in running it.
If I'm going to throw one more comment out there that probably is connected to that, it's just like that. It's more of a mismatch against them than everyone else, so it's more glaring in this game. But when you're so, aside from Cooper Beebe, when you're so light on the interior, I'm talking Hayden Gillum, Taylor Portier. I think when you got Texas, I mean, they're trying to block guys that are 70 pounds heavier than them.
Yeah. No, I mean, look, it's obvious why it didn't work, and they found a way. I mean, look, for all the Colin Klein had some bright moments. Like once they moved away from it, the offense found ways to move the ball, and he's gotten creative this year with swing passes to the backs and jet sweeps to get the running game going and quarterback run game when they've had to. He had a couple beautiful, I thought the tight end screens to Ben Sinnott both times were really effective. That was a creative play. The play again to Sinnott on their first snap of overtime that they get the completion down to the 6. Really well schemed. Like Colin Klein does a lot of things really well, but yeah, clearly there were some big lows in the game too. After the game, no, go ahead.
I said you made me think of it. Kansas State's become a really good screen team. They really have.
They have. And another moment that really killed me is Keegan Johnson right before the 3rd and 1. That play, he was a half step from the end zone. Like he just barely got tripped up. He just barely got tripped up, and that was like a little screen out to him, and it almost went for a touchdown. It was very close. He needed like just if it would have come off a little bit cleaner, I think that could have been a TD. After the game, though, this has obviously drawn a lot of reaction. Ben Sinnott had this to say about Will Howard. Kellis Robinette tweeted this quote. He said, quote, "If I hear one more bad thing about him, if I hear one more thing about how he's not our starting quarterback, it's going to really piss me off." And that's just a little piece of it. I know he called out like media and fans. I believe, Derek, you were there, so you can fill me in on that. I guess this is what I would have to say about that. I understand a guy sticking up for his quarterback, and there has been a lot of the social media stuff in particular, like people get emotional and there's been ridiculous things said about Will Howard. I understand the frustration there. And as a guy in the locker room, I get how that wears on you. He's your guy. You see him working and grinding. He won a Big 12 championship last year. Like sticking up for your guys, you should be doing that if you're a player. Now, should you be doing it publicly like that? That's a whole different discussion. And the other thing I would just reiterate is, we've talked about this before, Cole, how like we felt bad for Will when like Avery came in and saved the day against Texas Tech. We do genuinely feel bad for him, want him to succeed. If Will Howard played the entire year like he played the 4th quarter of the Texas game, this would have been no discussion at all. There would have been no social media noise. There would have been no media conversation about what do you do at starting quarterback. Like, you have to play better. And for most of the year, he has not played to that level. I respect Will Howard a lot, and I want him to continue playing like that. And he was a warrior against Texas. I very much respect the effort that he put out there. But let's not just retroactively make it seem like everybody was making up what his performance had been for most of the year, because it just has not been up to par for most of the year. And that's why a quarterback controversy started to creep in. So, I mean, that's one part of it. Another part is like, what are you doing now to Avery Johnson's head when he sees a comment like that? Like, hey, Will's our starting quarterback. Why are you guys talking about anything else? You're going to get some of that with playing 2 quarterbacks, but I'm not a huge fan. I understand it, and I get why Sinnott did it, and I get they're human and they have frustrations and egos just like the rest of us. I totally get it. I get pissed when people say things about me on social media and whatever too. I mean, I'm certainly throwing stones from a glass house, but I'm not super crazy about that comment.
Neither was I. And And maybe he just hadn't cooled off from what was a very emotional loss, and maybe in retrospect wouldn't have done that. But there was never really a question mark that contributed to that comment. So he also went out of his way to do it, because he even said, and I got something to say about that. Went on his, way to defending his quarterback. That's my quarterback energy from T.O. after, in the NFL, Terrell Owens, when he did that. I didn't love it, but more so for me, it's probably because I didn't necessarily understand it. Because like you, I'm like, Will Howard has had some moments that weren't as great this year. But I'm looking, because he said something about the media. I'm like, man, any criticism that I saw, I thought was pretty fair. Now, they get some stuff from over-the-top fans that we don't see that could contribute to this statement. Like, I've known some players and their parents on a personal level. Sometimes they get direct messages that are just flat out embarrassing if they were ever leaked, which aren't good at all. So if it comes from that place, then I guess I get it, because anything that I seen personally, I didn't think would actually go to the lengths to maybe cause that kind of statement. But there's some really things that we don't see sometimes, some really ugly and disgusting things sent to these kids at times.
Yeah, there's no room for any of that, and I get it. Like, social media can be a cesspool, and so these guys, and at their age, it's only natural to be on there from time to time and see some of that's being said, and not to be emotional about it. I get heat of the moment type reactions as well, and Ben Sinnott's a college kid, and Will Howard's a friend of his, and they're great teammates, and Will's a great dude. We all love Will. We've said it a million times. I think everybody's been pretty darn fair about the situation from a media perspective. I just, like, to John's point, like, it wouldn't have been the situation if it would have been the Will of last year for the majority of the season. Nobody's talking about, splitting quarterbacks. And the thing that I really just don't like about it, two things. They talk about, and Chris Kleiman preaches, blocking outside noise. Then you come out and make a comment like that where you're clearly not blocking out the outside noise. But two, John, to what you just said, it puts Avery Johnson in a really weird spot. I don't love it for that reason, because it looks like you're publicly siding with one quarterback over the other, and it's an uncomfortable situation for Avery. And I don't want to speak for Curry Sexton, but on our pod that we do each week in the 3-Mile bonus edition, he talked about before, early on in the season, why he doesn't like 2 quarterback systems, and that the Daniel Sams, Jake Waters thing, it created kind of the divide. And I think you could maybe see that happening here. Avery's a great teammate too. I'm sure everybody likes Avery and everybody likes Will. It's just an uncomfortable situation for all parties involved. And I just wasn't a fan of those comments necessarily there in that situation.
I will say, to kind of make an example out of what they might see, I hated that this guy screenshotted out. You saw the direct message that Trilly Donovan screened out, right? Suck my. Those are along the line. Those are on the lines these players get.
Why aren't you reading the whole thing?
You know what though? That line that Trilly had about Tang that was chicken.
I get it, but I'm just saying, if Trilly Donovan gets that,
Trilly and I have DM'd a little bit at times. He's been a good dude at times. That was a chicken shit line. I'm sorry. So.
It was, but Trilly Donovan's getting that line. Some of these players are getting stuff along those lines from drunk fans in the moment.
Yeah. No, there's definitely. I've gotten DMs before too, and from people. It's hard to imagine some of these folks are real human beings sometimes when you see the things that are said. So I get it. I feel for the guys that have to deal with that type of commentary. It's a tough situation, but. Just wouldn't like the. Yeah.
I mean, you're in your 30s, married with kids. I'm in my 30s. John's in his 30s. We struggle with that, but we can brush off a lot of it. A 20-year-old, that's tougher to brush off.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt. It's I would admit that I've been bothered numerous times, and that's at my age. So, and I wasn't, in college, didn't have to deal with this really. Plus, I wasn't a public figure.
look, I don't. Let me make it clear. I don't even think it's really fair for you to lump me in that statement. Like, oh, we can brush it off real good. I am not good at it. I have not been good at it throughout the course of my career. I mean, I will openly admit that. So again, stones from a glass house. But it is what it is. That doesn't also mean that this can't still cause some problems. So it is what it is. It is what it is. I love Ben Sinnott. I want him to keep balling out. I would love if Will Howard plays like that the rest of the year, man. I would love to go send him out with a 10-win season and feel great about what he's done in his K-State career, man. Let's do it. Sign me up for that. Let's just keep it rolling.
Thank you, Ben Sinnott. Over 29.5 yards. Easiest bet of the year.
So does this team have the ability to recalibrate from such a devastating loss and be okay this week?
Now this is more devastating than anything that they've endured before, but they've got off the mat after losses in the Clyman area very well. And I'll put this on it. If there's any game, if you give me the schedule, like what game would you like to have after this one? It's probably Baylor at home. They freaking suck.
Yeah. In terms of like what you would love to see, I'm glad that it's not going to Lawrence like this week. We'll put it that way.
Yeah.
I'm glad that it's not Iowa State at home. Actually, out of those games, Iowa State at home might have been the trickiest to have right here because Kansas. I mean, there's going to be plenty of motivation for that. Yes. But if it were Iowa State at home, like that might be a tougher one to get up for, and they are definitely capable of winning the game. I'm not sure. Hopefully this, wouldn't get old takes exposed or whatever, but I'm not sure that even if K-State came flat, that Baylor has it in them, and who knows where their mind is going to be after the way that they lost on Saturday too to Houston. Dana Holgorsen, 2 of the 3 wins for the Big 12 newcomers over the old guard of the Big 12 belong to Dana Holgorsen. Who had that on their bingo sheet at the beginning of the season? That 66% of the new Big 12 wins would belong to Dana. Okay.
So thanks to Oklahoma State, their wins total cashed over already. Yeah, it was 6.5.
All right. Well, Ty apparently makes some good bets. If you listen to the wins odds, he might dispute that or not believe it. But anyway, I got to get going. So I hope that's okay with everybody. Hope this has been somewhat cathartic. I still, dude, maybe the most upset I've been about this whole thing. Trilly Donovan, like Tang. You think Tang is Tang beating Duke for recruits at Louisville? Kiss my ass, man. No, he's not. That's not about K-State. That's about Duke. That line made me so mad.
It was bad because it. Oh God, do I?
I'm gonna say I'm sad because Quez Glover's out 6 to 8 weeks too.
That's brutal news. Brutal news.
Jeff Goodman tweeted that this morning.
What?
Yeah, that hurts John there. He did also say that there's optimism Naquan Tomlin could return fairly soon as long as his legal situation is resolved, which if you're on our Patreon page, John, at patreon.com/Streamall, you may have saw some indications of that recently. So, Goodman just now saying it, but we've hinted around at that. So
Patreon.com/Streamall. Patreon.com/Streamall to get in on the action there, get that inside info early, and get post game. If you want to hear me do a solo post game show without because I'm bailed because Cole was too sad to do post game, so I didn't. And then also screw up sending out the link the first time, so I was rumbling, bumbling, stumbling, but we got it in. We got it in. I called Cole to try and figure out how to message everybody. He didn't even respond to my calls. I was just a man without a country on Saturday. Figured it out.
Yeah, subscribe to our Patreon where I'm chicken shit and too emotionally devastated to have the heart and wherewithal to be able to do the post-game live show. That I wasn't in the right mental mind frame, guys. So apologies. We typically do that, though. And yeah, 6 to 8 weeks for Glover sucks, DY. That puts him at Big 12 play. He's a guy they need. So
yeah, So that's dicey. It makes me think it's like meniscus-ish.
Same thing he battled last year when he missed a couple months. So
lovely. What a weekend, Gongba, Texas, Quez Glover.
Trilly said a stone is coming loose on one of those Duke commits. Any chance, Gongba reconsider?
No, don't do that to yourself. Stop that.
I know.
I've said Trilly's name too many times on this podcast. Moratorium, no more Trilly.
Let's be clear. His tweet also, or his post also made it kind of insinuated in my mind like NIL related, which really what K-State's very competitive there with that. So it wasn't necessarily that. I don't know what he was insinuating, but yeah, maybe Trilly's a Louisville fan because he's been pushing that for 8 months for Tank. So
yeah. Okay. That's going to do it. I really got to run. Shout out to Holiday Distillery. Shout out to Home Field Apparel. Shout out to Nick Springer. Shout out to Derek Young. Shout out to Cole Manbeck. Shout out to me, myself, and I. Thanks for listening. Take care, and we'll talk to you soon.